We have a Sixers trade to announce. Well, I guess officially, right? As last night on the live show, we knew that KJ Martin was going to be moved after he was downgraded to out with a pending trade. But now we know where and for what. But the question is it a good move? We'll talk about that and ultimately how the Sixers have now revealed what their plan is for the rest of the season. So we'll get into it all. But welcome into Philly Take with RB. I'm RB. Do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Almost 70% of people that watch these are not subscribed. So do me a favor, hit the sub button. We're covering the entire trade deadline. We have a game again tonight. We'll be on for that. But in the meantime, we finally have the KJ Martin details. And I'm going to try not to go overboard and rant, but I am ticked off. All right, we'll start it off with this. The Sixers have officially traded KJ Martin to the Detroit Pistons, along with 2 second-round picks, Milwaukee's in 2027 and the Dallas one in 2031. League sources tell the Philly Voice. So the trade is KJ Martin and 2 seconds to the Detroit Pistons. Sixers do not get anything back. This is a pure salary dump move. Why did they do that? What does that mean? We'll talk about that. But Derek Bonner adds on here, and he says, despite being under the luxury tax apron now, the Sixers do not open up a mid-level exception for the remainder of this season because they had used the room mid-level exception on Kelly Oubre Jr. this summer. It also does not impact Gershon Yabusele because KJ Martin had a non-guaranteed deal. If you remember, they had signed him to that balloon contract. What does that mean? They gave him more with the intention of bringing him in, and they were going to use him in a bigger trade this season. We always knew that KJ Martin was going to get traded. But for what? For who? It was supposed to be a bigger domino, right? They paid him more so that they could match salary better, get a better player in who we thought could be the final piece. So now, as you sit here on February 5th, about 24 hours before the trade deadline, you're simply getting off the contract because you don't want it anymore, and that salary is not going to do anything for the Sixers. What does that mean? It means that the Sixers do not view the rest of this season as competitive. And to that, I bring up a couple questions. One, why are you bringing Joel Embiid back? Why are the Sixers still trying to win all these games? They've now played their way out, most likely, of getting that top 6 pick. And even if they were around there, who knows how the ping pong balls bounce on lottery night. But nonetheless, you're probably not going to get your first round pick. Now you're winning a lot of games. You bring Joel back, but at the same time, you're now selling off pieces and dumping salary. But why? We'll talk about that here in a second. It does mean that Sixers can now sign buyout players that make above the league average salary because now the 76ers are below the luxury tax line. So yesterday, with the Caleb Martin move, they got out of the first apron. And now when you think about KJ's contract, which I believe was $8 million, they are now, this hasn't updated, but they are below the 170.8 luxury tax lines, right? So if you take off $8 million approximately, they are below the luxury tax line. This is now the 3rd consecutive year that Joshua Harris and the Sixers have ducked the luxury tax. Bobby Marks breaks it down a little bit more. Sixers are 1.4 mil below the luxury tax with the Martin trade to Detroit. It saves Philly $20 million plus. They now have 2 open roster spots, and they also generate an $8 million trade exception, which can be used in a future trade. Detroit now has $6 million in cap space available, and Yassi Goslin says the Sixers save $40 million plus by trading Caleb and KJ Martin. He breaks it down a little bit more. Sixers have ducked the tax for a 3rd straight season after coming into it over the threshold. What does that mean? All right. We go back to the offseason. All we heard from the Sixers owners and the GM was this was the year. They were ready to push the chips into the middle of the table and stay in the first apron, stay in the tax, and do what it took to win. But there is a difference between good ownership and bad ownership. And I explained this last night on my live show because someone came in and said, well, if you were an owner, you wouldn't want to pay tax. We don't want to pay tax as normal everyday people. I agree. But there's a difference between you and I and Joshua Harris. Joshua Harris is running a business. He is an owner. He is trying to not only make more money, but hey, maybe win. Maybe isn't that the goal? And I hear about all these things that he says about the Commanders and good talent and ownership and being willing to invest and doing all this stuff. And then it always feels like the Sixers get looked at as an afterthought. That's why I'm mad here. That's why I'm frustrated, because the Sixers, yet again, for the third straight year, come in, and because Josh Harris doesn't want to take out the wallet and pay a little bit of tax, even though he's a billionaire, the Sixers now don't look competitive for the rest of the season. And that is ultimately why I'm annoyed, because coming into this deadline, even a week and a half ago, I said the Sixers either have to go one way all the way and buy and get pieces in here, or they need to sell everybody off, get as many picks as they can, and stack up for the future. But again, they're doing what they did last year where they teeter the line. Last year, they trade for Buddy Hield, they give up 3 seconds, and then they start selling off Pat Bev and Jaden Springer and guys like that. So why are you coming in here and giving up valuable picks? You gave up 2 second-round picks to dump a contract that we already knew was going to get moved. Why? Why are you giving up 2 second-round picks that could be valuable assets for a team that does not have a lot of valuable draft capital in the tank? It doesn't make any sense. I knew you'd have to give up something maybe to get off KJ's contract, but the Pistons can easily take on that contract. They have cap space, and it just is very annoying that, again, you're bringing Joel Embiid back, so it's like, all right, we want to win games, we want to try to win, but we're also going to give up players, get off money, just so we can get below that tax line, so I, Josh Harris, don't have to pay a bunch of tax dollars at the end of the season. So again, it goes back to good owners and bad owners. What is your goal? Do you want to win, or do you want to try to keep everybody's interest just enough, but still not pay as much as you should, still not invest? This is your baby. This is your business, right? If you're a business owner, you want to expand, you want to grow, you want to make more money, you want to get better, you want to accomplish your goals. And it's like the Sixers always make it look like they're going to do that, and then they take a step back at the last second. So that's where we sit, and it is quite obvious what they are doing. Keith Smith here adds that the Sixers now are under the tax and need to add another player. So I don't think they're done. I think they're going to trade Drummond. I think they're going to trade Eric Gordon, maybe Oubre, whoever. But ultimately what the Sixers are going to do is they are going to most likely, unless a blockbuster deal happens, and it could, right? We're hearing whispers about Durant and Butler and all this stuff. If they traded Paul George, for example, and completely threw things off, then everything I'm saying here will not be true. But what I'm feeling right now is that they're going to try to sell us next year on the idea of Joel Embiid and Paul George and Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain and everybody being healthy, and then we'll just have to go from there and see what happens. Because again, when you look at these contracts, there's no getting out of it. That's what I said. This might be your only opportunity to ever trade the PG contract if there is real interest. And I think they're looking at it saying, well, we just didn't have the opportunity. We didn't see enough games yet from these guys. And yeah, it's just, it's very interesting. But there's KJ Martin. They didn't update it yet. 7.975 this year. So we'll see what happens, man. But this trade is just annoying. And KJ Martin was actually starting to play pretty well. He showed some flashes, some promise. Probably not worth $8 million, but a guy who was starting to build momentum before he got hurt. And the Bucks also make a trade, which I think is a very mid move here. They trade Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, and a pick to the Wizards, or pick swap, excuse me, for Kyle Kuzma, Patrick Baldwin Jr., and second-round draft compensation. At one point, the Wizards were trying to get like 2 or 3 firsts for Kuzma. Now he gets swapped for Chris Middleton, so an end of an era there in Milwaukee. And if they think Kuzma is going to be their savior, I got to tell them something. The Wizards have been absolutely brutal, and Kuzma has not helped it at all. So another trade happens. More dominoes are falling in the NBA, but the Sixers have now dumped another salary, and it tells us where they are headed. And truly, I believe that they make a couple more moves, and they just try to play the rest of the season out, miss out on their first-round pick, and try to, I guess, give us some glimpses of hope. But just the way they have handled things all season just does not make a lot of sense to me, you know? And if they trade off these other players and they get a bunch of draft picks, then okay. Well, I guess I feel a little bit better. But, you know, you gave up Caleb Martin and KJ Martin, who honestly, I felt like were 2 of maybe the better role players on this team outside of Yabu and, you know, looking at some of these other guys. So that's kind of where I'm at. And it just, again, goes to show that an ownership and the mentality of a front office and a team can really dictate how the team performs, the decisions that are made, and ultimately who comes out on top and who wins. Because again, say if Jeff Lurie bought the Celtics, which is a rumor out there, you think he would be ducking the tax at the deadline? No, he's going to do whatever it takes. He's going to pull out all the reserves to go out there and make a move and try to win. And the Sixers just have not given the fans any type of hope or light or just any way to show that they want to do that year after year after year. So that's where we're at. See what happens moving forward. Give me your thoughts on this trade down below. Do you like it? Do you not? Appreciate everybody for tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.